Good evening, dear listener. Tonight we return to the quiet edges of time, where memory fades and myth begins. Perhaps you're nestled beneath soft blankets, the weight of the day loosening its grip. Outside, the world slows. Inside, the hush between thoughts begins to bloom. Let it all quiet now. There is nothing urgent here, only a drifting journey backward. Not to kings or warriors, but to the forgotten folds of daily life, where change begins not with a trumpet, but with a missing letter. A silence from the south. A morning colder than expected. And so we begin. The world is still Roman, but only just. The light is dimming. You wake in a narrow room of crumbling stone and wood, its walls still stained white with ancient lime wash. Above your head, wooden shutters creak as cold wind presses against them. Through the cracks, pale gray light filters in. The morning light of early spring, April perhaps. But years uncounted from now, we're 16, and the world is shifting beneath your feet, beneath your straw-filled mattress. The stone floor still holds a faint memory of warmth, though the fire in the central hearth has long gone out. Your breath rises in faint clouds. The linen beneath you is coarse, the wool above slightly itchy, but solid, woven by your mother dyed in the simplest shade of brown. This is your home. It used to belong to someone important, you've been told. Roman tiles still cling to the roof, though many have slipped away. The walls remain upright, for now. You live in what was once called a villa. You sit slowly, careful not to wake your siblings who sleep just a few feet away, curled on their pallets of rushes and straw. The room smells of ash, wool, and old smoke. You listen. Beyond the thin interior wall, your mother stirs. Her movements quiet but efficient. A pot is shifted. A log is added to the embers. You hear the soft crack of dried twigs catching flame. It's the beginning of another day. And though you don't yet know it, this day is different. Not because something will happen, but because something already has. Rome is gone. There were no battles here, no last stand, only a letter, a message that the legions would not return. That Britain must fend for itself. Your father says it like a fact, while others still whisper that the empire will return. But deep down, even you know it won't. You cross the room barefoot. The chill of the stone floor bites through your skin. Once the heating system beneath, the hypocaust warmed the villa from below. You remember it working in your earliest years, but now it lies dormant. The knowledge to repair it has faded with those who used to tend it. You pass beneath a mosaic that once showed Bacchus raising a cup, now cracked and incomplete, the god's face lost in a jagged line of missing tiles. Your grandmother used to tell you what it meant, but she died the winter before last, and no one else remembers. You wash your face with water that your brother fetched from the stream last night, now cold and sharp in the basin. A twig frayed at one end serves as your toothbrush. Dipped in salt, rubbed along your teeth with motions taught and repeated since childhood. Some things remain, even as others vanish. You dress in a tunic of coarse wool, dyed in faded blue. It was once your cousin's handed down again and again. Over it, a cloak fastened at the shoulder with a simple bronze brooch. Brooch is precious, belonged to your grandmother, and before that, to someone whose name is no longer spoken. Your shoes are leather, cracked and softened with age. You wind leather thongs around your calves to hold the fabric tight. By the time you step into the main room, your mother has coaxed a low flame from the ashes and is already kneading dough in a wide ceramic bowl. She doesn't look up. Your father's in the fields, she murmurs. The bread needs tending. You nod, take your place beside the bowl, and begin. Flour is coarse, mostly barley and rye, bulked out with ground acorns when times are hard. It is not the fine white flour that came from Gaul, but it feeds you. Before the Romans left, your family had servants, cook even. You were too young to remember them clearly, but your parents speak of them sometimes in the soft, unfinished sentences of those who know they will not return. When the legions withdrew, so did the structure that held this world together. Roads that once bustled with carts and patrols are now overgrown. Trade caravans arrive less often. The tax collector has not come in over a year. Some say the roads aren't safe, others say there's no point. You hear rumors of Saxons arriving on the eastern shore. Traders, perhaps, or raiders. No one knows for certain. Your neighbor, old Edius, says they burned 3 farmsteads last month. Your mother says not to listen, but she watches the horizon more carefully than she used to. And your father, once a provincial scribe, now sharpens his sickle like it might need to be used for more than wheat. You shape the bread with practiced hands, score it with a simple cross, and leave it to rise near the hearth. Your mother wraps a small clay bottle in cloth and hands it to you. Inside, a tincture for your father's aching back. Honey, meadow sweet, and willow bark. He's near the edge of the barley field, she says, and take water. You nod. The air is sharp as you step into the courtyard. The villa is crumbling. Ivy creeps along the stones. The garden, once geometrically ordered in Roman fashion, is now tangled with thyme and borage, rosemary and weeds. You pass the bathhouse. Its roof has fallen in. No one bathes there anymore. The lead pipes were sold years ago. In summer, you wash in the stream. In winter, from a basin, you follow the path to the fields, past a collapsed wall that once marked the estate's edge. The world narrows now to what can be defended, harvested, and carried by hand. You find your father bent low beside the ox, guiding a wooden plow through stubborn soil. His tunic clings to his back with sweat, despite the chill. He straightens slowly when he sees you, one hand pressed to his spine. He was never meant for this kind of work. Once he worked in an office near the Roman fort, he can still read Latin. He still keeps accounts with scraps of parchment and charcoal. But parchment is harder to come by now, and most of the neighbors no longer need his numbers. They need grain. His hands are calloused, his back bent, his eyes shadowed. Your mother's tincture, you say? He uncorks the clay vessel and drinks. Bitter, he mutters, but it helps. You look out across the fields, barley on one side, rye on the other. Will it be enough, you ask? He doesn't answer at first. Then it must be. Rome won't feed us anymore. He gestures to the sky. Clouds gathering. The weather is less predictable now, or maybe it always was.
Ow!
The Roman calendars no longer match the seasons. Still, the fields must be planted. You talk quietly of the neighbors, the ox, the faint rumor of a trader from Gaul. He brought salt, your father says. Dot wanted metal in return. Tools, weapons. You nod. Your uncle melted down an old helmet to make hinges. The world trades in utility now. Coins are fewer. Their faces rubbed smooth by countless hands. Your father touches the knife at his belt when he sees movement on the horizon. A rider. It's dust rising. You hand him the ox's rope. He walks toward the road with slow purpose, the sun catching on the iron of his blade. When he returns, his face is pale. Picts, he says. From the north, he does not need to say more. You run, not in fear exactly. In duty. Toward the villa, toward your mother and siblings. The sword your grandfather carried. Roman issue. Bronze hilted is pulled from behind the grain bin, unwrapped from its cloth. It's heavier than you expect. Your siblings stare. Your mother does not. She packs bread, dried meat, blankets. We go to the caves, she says. You know the place. Dug by your great-grandfather to store wine and grain. Now it shelters something else entirely. You look back only once. At the villa's roof, half gone, the mosaic tiles, the broken hearth, you wonder if your children will ever see it, or if they'll only hear stories. You tighten the sword belt at your waist. Doesn't fit quite right. But still, you wear it, as you must. And so ends the morning that Rome let go. The smell of ash clings faintly to your tunic as you crouch in the quiet of the villa's great room. Though great may no longer be the right word. Once this space echoed with laughter, polished sandals on stone, music. That was before you were born. Now it smells of damp stone, drying herbs, and the faint bitterness of old smoke. The bread sits near the fire, rising slowly in the warmth. You keep half an eye on it while you rub beeswax into the wooden table, a routine your mother insists upon, even though the wood is cracked and warped. Her fingers move automatically as she sorts through the dried fennel thyme and feverfew hanging from the rafters. She crushes them into pouches, her mouth tight with focus. She hasn't said anything more about the rider. She doesn't need to. Silence speaks clearly enough. You glance toward the cracked mosaic once again. It's older than you. Older even than your father. It used to show Bacchus lifting a cup surrounded by vines and dancers. Now only part of the cup remains, and a swirl of leaves disappearing into broken grout. A large fissure cuts diagonally across the floor, the result of an earthquake. or perhaps just time. No artisans remain to fix it. The man who made it, if he ever had a name, is long gone. Still, your family walks over it every day, carefully avoiding the loose edge where the tile once glittered. You remember your grandmother pressing your hand into one of the remaining patterns when you were very young. This, she whispered, was made by hands you'll never know. Doesn't mean it isn't yours to care for. She was like that. Quiet, stern, impossibly wise. Her brooch now pins your cloak. You feel its weight even now. Your younger brother and sister play near the grain sacks, stacking dried apple slices and pretending they're coins. The fire glows softly behind them, and the bread has begun to brown at the edges. You rise, lifting it from the clay oven built into the hearth wall. The cross-shaped cut you made earlier has spread open slightly, like a wound. The crust is thick and hard, the scent nutty and sour. It will keep for several days. You rest it on a wooden board to cool, and your mother nods faintly without speaking. Outside, the sun slips behind a bank of clouds. Shadows stretch across the courtyard. A chill settles in the room that has nothing to do with temperature. Your mother stands slowly, wipes her hands on her apron, and nods toward the outer wall. Go, check the smoke. Her voice is calm, but her eyes are focused, fixed somewhere far away. You slip outside, your leather soles quiet against the stone threshold. The courtyard lies still, the garden beyond overgrown, but across the low hills near the far tree line, thin wisps of smoke rise. Not the steady columns of hearth fires, but crooked twitching ribbons in the air. Your breath catches. Another farmhouse, maybe the Baron's place, maybe worse. You squint, trying to see movement, but the distance is too great. Still the wind brings something faint. A smell you recognize, but wish you didn't. Burned wheat, scorched wool, scent that lingers long after flames die out. You step back into the house quietly and find your mother watching you. You nod once. That's all it takes. She turns, and in a matter of moments, begins preparing packs. Water skins, dried meat, blankets. Only what we can carry quickly, she says. Your siblings stop playing and watch, their game forgotten. The pretend coins lie scattered on the floor. It wasn't always like this. You remember winters where fear meant foxes, in the hen house, or a sudden fever that passed in 3 days? Now, every footstep outside the villa feels heavier. Every silence carries weight. Since the Romans left, no road has been safe for long. People speak of the Saxons like shadows. Sometimes traitors, sometimes thieves, always foreign. But it's not just the Saxons. It's the Picts from the north, the Irish raiders from the west, even warlords from neighboring valleys who seek to gather land and power for themselves. There is no central voice anymore, no governor's seal. No legions in shining armor to patrol the roadways and restore peace. You rely on rumors, on the old networks of trust, village to village, cousin to cousin, and sometimes even those fall apart. Still, daily life continues. It has to. Bread must be baked. Sore backs must be soothed. Children must be held, even in uncertainty. Your father returns just before dusk, his hands caked with earth, a streak of dried sweat along his neck. He says little, but his face tells you everything. He saw the smoke too. He saw the rider pass. His voice is steady as he speaks to your mother, but his shoulders slump a little more than yesterday. We go to the caves tonight, he says. We'll leave after the evening meal. He places his hand on your shoulder as he walks past. The calluses on his palm scrape lightly against your skin. You nod, you understand. After supper, a simple meal of broth, onions, and slices of the hard bread. The house is cleared quickly. You wrap the remaining food in cloth sacks, pull cloaks tight around your siblings, and tuck the old gladius into your belt again. You light a single oil lamp. Its flicker paints long shadows across the cracked mosaic. You step over it carefully. One last time. The path to the caves winds behind the villa, past the collapsed bathhouse, and down toward the stream. Once this trail was lined with olive trees and lavender. Now, only wild grasses remain, brown and tall. The sky turns violet above as twilight sets in. You move in silence. Even your younger sister, usually so full of chatter, says nothing. She clutches her wooden doll tightly. Its painted eyes long faded. Your mother carries the food. Your father holds a spear that once hung above the hearth. You walk single file, the lamp swinging in your hand. The caves lie low, dug into the chalky hillside years ago by hands that never thought they'd be used like this. They are cold, damp, and smell of old grain and mildew. But they are hidden, and for now, that is enough. Your father lifts a brush of ivy and reveals the entrance. One by one, you slip inside. The walls are rough to the touch, packed with old stones. Settle near the back, where the air is thick but still. Your mother spreads the blankets. The children curl together like pups. Your father sets the spear down and leans against the wall, rubbing his back. You sit quietly, listening, not just for noise, but for absence. The forest beyond is too quiet. You strain your ears and think you hear something distant. A horn? Or wind, it doesn't matter. There is no more defending, only waiting.
Ow.
Your hand rests near the sword hilt. It still feels strange there, heavy, as if it knows you don't belong to it, and yet it stays. Through the cave's narrow mouth, the stars emerge. You wonder who else is hiding tonight? How many others crouch in dark places, waiting for a dawn that may not come cleanly? This, too, is your inheritance. You drift in and out of sleep beside the flickering oil lamp, the sound of your brother's slow breath beside you. You dream of the cracked mosaic, the vines moving, the dancers rising again, their feet skipping across clean tiles. The face of Bacchus is whole again, his cup full of wine. He raises it to you, smiles, but the smile turns. The tiles begin to break. The vines curl like snakes. You wake with a start, heart thudding, and realize you are still in the cave, still in the dark. But you are not alone, and that is something. Your father dozes with one arm curled around the spear. Your mother's breath comes slow and even. You lean back against the cool wall and watch the oil lamp sputter. Outside, the smoke still rises. The world above is uncertain. But here, for now, there is still breath, there is still bread, there is still time. The morning comes slowly, as if uncertain it should arise at all. From your place at the cave's mouth, you watch the gray light gather over the distant hills. Mist coils through the undergrowth, catching in hollows and rising like steam from the earth. The fire has long since gone out. Rub your hands together, not for warmth. There is little to be had but to wake the feeling in your fingers. Your younger sister stirs beside you, still wrapped in wool, her doll clutched tightly to her chest. You lean against the cold stone and listen. Still quiet. Still no sign of hooves or shouting. No smoke. Your father stands at the edge of the undergrowth, the gladius at his side. He says nothing, but you can see him counting something in his mind. Steps, time, or perhaps prayers. You wonder what language he prays in, Latin maybe, or something older. By mid-morning, you've packed your things again. The dampness of the cave has begun to sink into your bones. You emerge into a world that looks on the surface unchanged. Birds call cautiously from the trees. A pair of crows hop along a low wall near the stream. But something has shifted. The trees seem closer somehow. The road, once beaten smooth by carts and sandals, is being taken back by brambles and moss. Your father squints toward the horizon. We'll go by the east field, he says quietly. If anything's burned, it'll be from that side. Your mother adjusts the strap across her chest and nods. You tighten your cloak. The old brooch warms slightly with your body heat, but the air is sharp. You walk slowly, carefully. Every footprint in the mud seems fresh. Every movement in the underbrush feels louder than it should. The world hasn't ended, but it is certainly rearranging itself. The path winds around the back of the barley fields. Your father pauses near a dry stone wall, crouching to examine a set of tracks. Not hooves, not human. A badger, maybe. He says nothing. Neither do you. Your sister kicks at a rock, but stops when your mother glances her way. The silence becomes a kind of rhythm, familiar and heavy. You pass the edge of the upper terrace and get your first clear view of the villa. It's still standing. No smoke. No shattered doors. You exhale slowly. Relief is a strange thing. It doesn't come all at once, but like water creeping into dry soil. Your father nods and quickens his pace. When you reach the courtyard, the place is as you left it. Breadboard on the table. Soot in the hearth, cracked mosaic gleaming faintly beneath a shaft of morning light. You feel a pang as you cross it. The house still stands,
Dad.
but the world still leans. Later that afternoon, your father takes you up the old Roman road that leads toward the ridge. It's more path than road now, broken by roots and soft with moss. At the top, the trees part, revealing the overgrown ruins of what was once a Roman market town, a place your great-grandfather used to visit monthly for supplies and letters. You've heard stories of it, but never seen it with your own eyes. Your father stands quietly beside you, staring at the crumbled walls and sagging rooftops in the distance. That was the forum, he says, pointing to a central courtyard now overrun with weeds, and beyond it, the basilica. That was where the magistrate used to sit. My uncle went there once to settle a land dispute. It took 3 weeks to be heard, but he came back with a signed order. You'd never see that now. He shakes his head, not with anger, but with something like mourning. You walk down into the ruins together. Ferns grow between broken tiles. Vines drape themselves lazily over fallen columns. The bones of the past lie beneath your feet, not buried, but merely ignored. Your father points out what used to be a bakery, now roofless. A tree growing up through its stone floor. They say you could buy bread here, cheese, even wine from the continent. My mother remembered it as noisy, full of shouting and smells. Now, it's a place for foxes. You step over a crumbled archway, your hand brushing the stone as you pass. It feels rougher than you imagined, less ancient somehow, as if it resents being left behind. You find a tile half buried in dirt, painted with a faint curl of green. Your father lets you keep it. For memory, he says, for when it all changes again. You nod, because you know it will. Near the edge of the town ruins stands the shell of a small temple, circular with a domed ceiling that is mostly collapsed. Moss grows thick where the gods used to sit. You duck inside, the light dim and soft through the fractured stone. An old altar remains, worn smooth by time and weather. Your father kneels beside it for a moment, not to pray, but to rest. They used to make offerings here, he says. Wine, oil, coins. Not because they believed it changed the gods, but because it reminded them of their place. He glances at you. Do you understand? You think about it? About the bread, the fire, the sword? Maybe you say. He smiles faintly. Good enough. Stands again, joints popping audibly. Come. The light is going. You step out into the open once more. The wind has picked up. Somewhere in the distance, a raven calls. You follow your father back through the grass. By the time you reach the villa, your mother has already prepared a pot of soup, lentils, and wild garlic, with a bit of dried meat. The smell is strong, earthy, comforting. You sit beside the hearth, the fire flickering in the fading light. Your siblings have fallen asleep already, curled together near the back wall, their limbs tangled like vines. Your mother kneels at the fire, poking it with a length of iron. You saw it, she asks. Your father nods. It's all there, just fading. She doesn't reply. You sip your soup slowly. The warmth spreads from your throat to your chest. Your father unwraps the broadsword again, examining the edge. We'll sharpen it tomorrow, he says quietly. Even if we never need it. You nod. The sword lies between you and the fire, catching the orange glow like an old truth. Hard, heavy, and quiet. That night you dream of the ruined town. Only now it is whole again. The basilica stands tall, its columns polished white, the forum filled with voices. Traders call out prices. Someone sings. The fountain at the center flows with clear water. You walk through it all as if you belong, and maybe you do. The dream that gods have faces again. Bacchus smiles, holding his cup. Minerva watches with stone eyes. Owl perched on her shoulder. The bread is light and warm, the wine rich and red. You want to stay? But even in the dream, you know it cannot last. The sky dims, the tiles crack. You wake slowly to the sound of wind outside, of your father stirring the fire. Past recedes like a tide, but some part of it always lingers. It's in brooches, in mosaic shards, in the shape of your thoughts. As your father leaves again the next morning, there's talk of forming a watch, men from the neighboring valley, led by someone who used to serve as a centurion. You don't know if he truly was. No one checks such things anymore. Still, your father sharpens the blade, packs dried meat, and adjusts the leather ties on his old sandals. Before he goes, he touches your shoulder again. You'll stay here. Help your mother. Keep watch. Keep quiet. You nod. 8. The sword lies where he left it, near the hearth, beneath the mosaic. You stare at it for a long time, then move it slightly, placing it just so, like an offering or a promise. The day will be long. There is bread to bake, the mosaic to clean, the gods may have left, and the empire may have crumbled, but the hearth still burns. For now, that is enough. The smell of barley flour hangs thick in the air, clinging to your sleeves and hair, settling into the folds of your tunic like the dust of old time. The dough is heavy this morning, slow to rise in the early spring chill. You knead it with quiet rhythm, pressing your weight into it with each motion, watching cracks form and smooth again beneath your fingers. Your mother sits nearby, mending a torn cloak by firelight. A pot of pottage bubbles lazily at the hearth, sending up steam scented faintly with wild garlic and lentils. The fire crackles, but it's a soft sound now, subdued, as if it too is wary. Outside, a gust of wind stirs the wooden shutters, rattling them gently against their frame. You glance toward the mosaic in the corner of the room. It looks paler than usual this morning, its broken vines faint in the dim light. A shadow has crept into the day, though the sun still rises.
Dad.
The rider came again last night. You didn't see him, but your father did. His return was later than usual, his breath short from climbing the ridge, his words clipped and low. 3 farms gone, he said, one of them the Harlans. Your mother's face tightened at the name, her hands folding into her apron. You remember the Harlans? They came last harvest with extra barley, laughing, teasing, full of warmth. They shared stories of the North Road, traded cheese for wool. Now their house lies in ashes. No one said it aloud, but you could see it in your father's eyes. No one returned from that raid. You felt it in the way your mother covered the windows with cloth, in the way she braided your sister's hair more tightly than usual, her hands trembling just enough to notice. Even your little brother stayed quiet as the oil lamp flickered late into the night. This morning, there is no decision to make. Sure. Your father sharpens the blade without being asked. Your mother gathers the children's cloaks and food parcels without a word. Everyone moves with practiced slowness. Not panic. Not yet. But the air feels tight. You move through your tasks carefully, almost reverently. You shape the dough into flat rounds instead of loaves. Easier to carry, quicker to bake. The oven is already hot. You use an old paddle to slide them in, counting the minutes not in time but in heartbeats. You wrap smoked meat in leaves, tuck dry apples into cloth sacks, fold blankets into tight bundles. Your sister clutches her doll again. Your brother stands by the door, holding a wooden staff he carved himself last summer. He doesn't say anything, but he hasn't let go of it since breakfast. You want to tell him it'll be all right? But that would be a lie, and lies break more than silence. Your father steps outside just after midday, his shadow long in the courtyard. You follow, standing just behind him, watching his gaze settle on the hills to the east. Smoke again. Not much, not close, but it's the kind that doesn't rise from cooking fires. It stutters, rises crookedly, stops, starts again. Someone's burning something that wasn't meant to be burned. He squints into the wind. Too soon, he murmurs. I thought they'd wait longer. You don't ask who they are. You already know. Saxon raiders, most likely, or a band of Britons turned desperate, looking for food and firewood in places they don't own. It doesn't matter. Hunger makes all men strangers. Your father tightens the belt at his waist. We'll go at dusk, he says. A better light, less wind. He looks at you, and you nod. Hey, there's nothing more to say. Inside, the bread is done. You wrap it in linen. It's warm, soft, and smells faintly of hope. The caves are too damp to return to, your father says. He's found another place. Deeper in the woods, near an old charcoal pit from the Roman days. No one will think to look there, he tells your mother, and though she says nothing, she begins repacking the bundles. Carry your own now. A small satchel with bread, dried herbs, a water skin, and the blade your father gave you. It's dull but solid, made from the iron of an old gate hinge. Use it if you must, he said, but only to protect, never to chase. You don't feel like a warrior, feel like a bakeress child who learned to plant barley and clean fish and patch sandals. But you wear the blade anyway, slung across your back in a leather sheath that smells like smoke and age. Outside, the sky dims. The wind shifts. Somewhere nearby, a branch cracks in the forest. Everyone stops moving for just a breath. You leave just as the sun kisses the hills, the light gold and quiet. Your family walks in silence, not from fear, but from necessity. Noise carries. Your father leads, then your mother, your brother, your sister, and finally you, watching behind. The path twists downward into thickets of bramble and elder, places the goats won't graze and the deer rarely tread. The air grows colder here. The trees block what little warmth remains. You pass a half-buried milestone carved in Latin. Its letters faded, moss blooming in the grooves. You trace one with your finger. Lundin. It reads faintly. Once, it pointed toward a city. It points toward stories. You move on. By the time you reach the pit, the light is nearly gone. Your father clears away the brush, revealing a low depression in the earth, ringed by stones and layered in ash. You crouch low, spreading your blanket over a patch of dry ground, careful not to disturb the moss. The night comes fast. You light no fire. Instead, you chew the flatbread slowly, letting the warmth of each bite linger. Your sister falls asleep quickly, her doll tucked into her cloak. Your brother stays awake, staring into the dark with wide eyes. You whisper to him. Not a story, not tonight, but just words. We are here, you say, and we are still us. It helps a little. Your mother places her hand on his head. Sleep if you can, she murmurs. The stars will keep watch. She looks up, and you follow her gaze. Through a break in the canopy, you see them, faint and steady, like a promise too far away to touch. You lie down beside your brother, cloak wrapped tight, blade still at your back. Your father keeps watch with the spear across his knees. No one says goodnight. Words feel too heavy, only silence remains. Soft, slow, and waiting. You don't sleep much. The cold settles into your bones, and every owl call makes you flinch. But you drift in and out, into memories, into dreams. You dream of the bread again. Only now it bakes itself, rising with no hands, golden and perfect. The hearth glows bright. The mosaic gleams whole. Your grandmother laughs somewhere beyond the wall. You reach for the bread, but it turns to stone. You wake just before dawn, lips dry, heart aching with something you can't name. Your father still watches. He hasn't moved. His eyes meet yours, and he nods once. You sit up slowly. The world is hushed, but not silent. The forest breathes around you. Somewhere far off, a dog barks. Then nothing. You listen harder. Nothing still. We'll go back, your father whispers. We'll see what's left. You pack your things again. The bread is still warm enough to eat. You tear it into small pieces and pass it down the line. The walk back is slow, cautious. Every twig beneath your foot feels like a drumbeat. When you emerge from the woods near the upper fields, the first thing you see is the smoke. Not thick, not rising in columns, just smudges. The kind that means destruction, but not obliteration. You crouch low, heart pounding. Your father gestures for silence, then creeps forward along the tree line. You wait. The world holds its breath. A bird flutters through a nearby bush. Your mother takes your sister's hand. Your brother grips his staff. Finally, your father returns. They passed through, he says quietly, but didn't stop. Just took the livestock. Broke the door. Didn't burn it. You exhale, slower than before. It could be worse. It has been worse. You walk toward the house again, past the trampled garden, past the gate hanging crooked on its hinge. The mosaic floor lies uncovered, cracked, waiting. You step inside, bread in hand, and begin again. The air below the earth is thick and still, wrapped in a silence that presses gently against your skin. Crouch just inside the cave mouth, letting your eyes adjust to the dark. The slope down is steep and familiar. You've walked it before, but never like this. Never with a full pack on your back and a blade strapped beneath your cloak. The cave is damp, the stones slick beneath your boots, the air tinged with the scent of mildew, old ash, and faintly sour grain dust. Your brother's breath echoes behind you, quiet but close. And the small lamp your mother carries casts a golden arc against the rough walls. You used to play down here as a child, chasing echoes and pretending to be explorers. Now, your fingers brush the stone as you pass, not in curiosity, but caution and reverence. These caves were not meant for life. But life, it seems, returns to them anyway. The space opens after the third bend, flattening into a low chamber where grain was once stored in thick clay jars sealed with wax. Most are gone now, broken or salvaged. In their place, your father has set makeshift shelves carved from old furniture, and strips of linen hang from the ceiling to catch dripping moisture. In one corner, a pile of dried bracken has been swept into a nest of sorts, bedding for the children. You kneel near it, testing the floor. Dry enough, you'll help your sister out of her cloak and tuck the doll beside her before she can ask. She doesn't speak, just nods sleepily, curls into the leaves, and closes her eyes. Your mother lowers the lamp to a wide rock and begins laying out food. Flatbread apples, a pouch of dried berries. The lamp flickers in the stale air. Its light dances across the stone, revealing the faint soot stains from older fires. Other nights, other storms. You sit beside your brother, his knees pulled tightly to his chest. He's too old to be held like a child, too young to feel like a man. You nudge a piece of bread into his hands. Eat while it's soft, you whisper. He nods. Your father unrolls his blanket slowly, hands moving stiffly. He injured his leg last winter, and though he won't speak of it, you see the pain in how he lowers himself to the ground. Still, he sets the spear beside him, blade facing outward, and leans back against the stone with the calm of someone who's done this before. He has. Once when you were smaller, he brought you down here during a bad storm. Not of weather, but of men, he said, drunk and desperate. That night you hid behind a grain jar, clutching your sister and counting your mother's heartbeats. You remember that silence? It's the same one that fills the cave now. There is a small chimney near the rear of the chamber. A thin shaft carved generations ago that leads to the surface. Lets in just enough air to keep the cave livable, and when winds are right, allows smoke from a tiny fire to drift unnoticed. Tonight your mother doesn't risk lighting one. The cold settles on your shoulders, slow and weighty. You pull your cloak tighter and stretch out on the stone. The grainy earth beneath you softened only slightly by woven rush mats. Sleep doesn't come quickly. You listen instead. To the shuffle of your father's breath, to the tiny creak of your mother's knees as she rearranges her basket, to the distant drip of water deep in the stone. No sounds from above, no footsteps, no hooves. The silence could mean safety, or it could mean something else. In the dark, all meanings are equal. At some point, you dream. You're walking through the villa, only it is whole again. Roof restored, walls clean, floors shining. The mosaic is bright and full. The gods are there too, painted figures in the corners, half familiar, half strange. They watch as you pass. In your hands, you carry a tray of bread, hot from the oven, but no one takes it. You move from room to room, offering it, but the figures remain still. Then you're in the cave again, only it stretches longer than it should. A tunnel. You walk. You run. Still it wins. When you finally wake, the lamp is out. The cold is deepened. You don't know how much time has passed. But your father is still awake, his silhouette barely visible. You close your eyes again, not to sleep, but to rest. By morning, your mother lights the lamp once more, using the last of the oil. The faint blue of early light seeps in through the chimney enough to see by. You chew dried apples slowly, your jaw aching from a restless night. Your father rises first, testing his weight on his injured leg. I'll go look, he says quietly. Stay until I return. Your mother doesn't argue. He takes the spear, tightens his cloak, and vanishes into the passageway. The silence that follows is heavier than before. You help fold the blankets, stacking them neatly near the bracken. Pour the last of the water into a cup and pass it around. The children sip, your brother wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Will we go home? He asks. You glance toward your mother. She hesitates, then nods. If it's safe, that's all she says. If you wait, time stretches. You clean your blade with a cloth, not because it's dirty, but because the motion calms you. Your sister hums softly under her breath, a tune from the spinning song your grandmother used to sing. you find yourself joining in, quietly. The notes echo strangely in the chamber, soft and hollow. Your mother hums too, her voice low and warm. For a moment, it feels like something has returned. Not safety, not peace, but presence. The simple human thing that makes breath matter. Think about the people who built this cave, not Romans but your own kin, those who lived between empires. They dug this place not to worship, but to endure. You trace a line along the stone, finding the initials your uncle once carved. He was taken by fever 2 winters ago. You press your thumb into the groove and remember his laugh, full of smoke and honey. When your father returns, the lamp is flickering again. He doesn't speak at first, just kneels near the rock and unwraps a piece of cloth. Inside is a small coil of twine, a bent iron spoon, and 2 eggs. Unbroken. It didn't touch the house, he says. Took the hens, the cart, and the woodpile, but the rest is there. They moved west. He doesn't say how he knows. He doesn't need to. Your mother nods. We'll go back tomorrow, she says. After dark, he agrees. You repack your things with the ease of habit. The bread is harder now, but still good. You share it carefully, passing it hand to hand in silence. The oil in the lamp burns low. Your brother reaches for his staff. Your sister curls into your lap. Your father leans his head against the stone. The cave holds you all, not comfortably, not kindly, but completely or deeply that night. And in your dreams, the cave becomes a hall, lit with braziers, filled with quiet voices. People move past you, none of them speaking, carry a scroll, heavy and sealed with wax. When you unroll it, the letters shift and blur. You wake with a start. It's still dark, but something is different, a sound, a breath. Then you realize it's rain, soft, steady, falling on the earth above. You smile. The world is still turning. You rise quietly and walk toward the passage mouth. At its edge, you stop and close your eyes. You can smell the damp soil, the moss, the faint greenness that only rain brings. It smells like forgiveness, like life. Tomorrow, you'll return. Rebuild what can be rebuilt. The villa still stands. The mosaic still waits. The bread will rise again. And when it does, you'll remember the caves. Not just for what they sheltered, but for what they taught. The wind carries the scent of smoke long after the flames have vanished. Even now, weeks later, it lingers on your tunic, in your hair, and on the stone lintel above the hearth. You rub it between your fingers sometimes, that invisible residue, wondering if it will ever fully go. The house stands, though changed. The animals are gone. The cart is gone. The garden is scorched, the apple tree blackened on one side. The roof is patched. And in the space where the grain shed once stood, a new structure begins to rise. Simple, timber-framed, lashed with rope, and sealed with clay. Your father calls it the longhouse. It will hold more than grain. It will hold people, right? Because the world no longer spins around one family alone. Since the raids, your villa is no longer just yours. Others have come, survivors, cousins, even strangers. Together, you begin again. The first to arrive were the Redlands, carrying all they owned in 2 sacks and a cracked bronze cauldron. You remembered them from the harvest last year, always laughing, always loud. Now they speak more softly, more slowly. Their home was torched, their dog killed, but they survived. They brought dried beans, a sack of salt, and a skill in making thatched roofs. Your father gave them a corner of the villa. Then came Cinna and her son, barefoot and blank-eyed, having walked from a village near the coast. She doesn't speak much, but she scrubs clothes until they shine, and knows how to spin flax so fine it feels like river silk. Then came Tion, tall and quiet, who lost 3 fingers to frostbite and still manages to fish. He builds traps from willow branches and can skin a hare faster than your brother can gut a trout. These are your people now, not just neighbors, kin. At first, it's strange. The villa filled with unfamiliar breath, strange accents, new smells. But soon, the rhythm of life begins to settle. You wake before sunrise, stoke the fire, and begin kneading. Now you bake double. 1 batch for your family, another for the shared table beneath the longhouse roof. Others bring what they can, carrots, dried nettles, sometimes eggs when the hens cooperate. The courtyard, once cluttered with broken roof tiles and burned tools, now holds baskets, sacks, and the murmur of low conversation. Children run barefoot, chasing geese that don't belong to any one person. Your sister sings as she churns butter. Your brother teaches the Redlands' youngest how to carve wooden spoons. And though the fear still lingers, in the watchman posted at dusk, in the absence of oxen in the lower fields, something else begins to grow. Not safety, not yet, but shape, structure, the slow curl of belonging. The longhouse becomes the center of it all. Built with salvaged beams and stones from the old Roman storehouse, its walls smell of fresh-cut pine and damp clay. It's not grand, but it stands tall and warm. Inside, a large hearth burns nearly all day. Women sort grains, children grind barley, and men mend tools, soaking handles in oil to keep the wood from splitting. You help wherever needed, stitching, stirring, carrying water from the stream. Sometimes you even read. The old scrolls your father saved have found their way to a dry shelf above the hearth. And though many letters are fading, you still sound them out at night for anyone who will listen. Cinna's son sits closest, always quiet, his eyes wide. He has never seen a Roman letter before. You hand him the scroll gently. Watch him trace the lines with a finger. "What does this one say?" he asks. "Bread," you whisper. "It means bread. Not everything is simple. Some nights, the fire is too low and the wind too sharp. Arguments rise over tools, over who forgot to feed the goats, over who took too many leeks from the shared basket. Tian sometimes grows quiet for whole days.
Ow.
Cinna cries in her sleep. Your mother works longer hours, her hands cracked and red from the cold. But even the sorrow has rhythm now. You come to know it. The ebb and flow of grief and comfort, blanket placed silently on sleeping shoulders. A bowl of broth passed without asking. A story shared beside the fire, not to teach, but to soften the silence. One evening, your father stands near the hearth and begins to speak of Londinium, of paved streets and fire lamps and baths that never ran cold. No one interrupts him. Even the youngest children go still. "It was bright," he says finally, "but it never taught us how to rebuild." Outside the longhouse, a new garden grows. It's a crude thing at first. A few rows of onion, garlic, beetroot. But each day you tend it, you learn more. Which earth is too dry, which roots attract worms, which leaves curl in frost. Your hands become stained, your nails rimmed with soil that never quite scrubs clean. It feels good, though. True, you plant lavender near the entrance, not for food, but for scent, a soft purple bloom that reminds you of your grandmother's sleeves. The Redlands build a fence from woven willow. It leans, but it holds. One morning you find a hedgehog sleeping beneath the parsley. Your brother says it's a good omen. You smile, you let it sleep. And when it wakes, it waddles away quietly, leaving only tiny tracks behind. Sometimes the smallest creatures teach the loudest lessons. Stay soft, stay still, turn again. One afternoon, a rider arrives. Not with sword or flame, but with word. He carries no banner, only a wooden staff carved with symbols, a mark of a wandering monk, or maybe a trader with priestly training. He speaks a dialect that makes you squint, but your father understands him well enough. "There's a gathering," he says. 2 valleys west, for those who want to form council. Not a kingdom, he adds quickly, but something like a circle. Your father strokes his beard. "A moot," he says. "A word from before Rome." The monk nods. Old ways, new hands. That night, around the hearth, the idea spreads like fire. Shared fields, shared defense, shared memory. No more waiting for Rome to return. No more hiding. The word village is spoken aloud, not just as description, but as declaration. This place has changed, and with it so have you. You mark the change not by the calendar, which no longer fits the seasons, but by the sounds. The hammer against stone, chatter of children practicing Latin letters, the rustle of linen drying in rows. You've become a baker, a gardener, a listener, and now perhaps something more, a keeper of stories. The old scrolls still sit on their shelf, but now you add to them. Not with ink and quill, parchment is rare. but in clay tablets, carved with sharpened bone, you write the names of those who've come, the seeds that grew, the nights it rained, the days the bread rose too fast or too flat. It's not history, not yet, but it's something. Your record, thread between then and now. One night, just before winter sets in, you walk through the longhouse after everyone has fallen asleep. The fire is low, glowing gently beneath ash. Cup sits half full on the table, forgotten. The scent of herbs still lingers in the air. Rosemary maybe, or sage. You kneel near the hearth and close your eyes. You picture the mosaic in the villa, the gods faded but not gone. Picture the scrolls, the fields, the hedgehog's trail, the cracked hands of your mother kneading dough. This too is a kind of prayer, not one spoken, not one aimed at sky or temple, but one rooted in the earth, in work, in warmth, in waking to begin again. The morning sun filters softly through the woven shutters, casting dappled patterns across the earthen floor. You rise before the rest, stepping carefully past sleeping bodies in the longhouse. Someone snores softly. A child murmurs in their dreams. You wrap your cloak tighter, brushing past the herb bundles drying near the doorway. Outside, the chill clings to your skin, but it's not sharp. More of a breath, a memory of winter fading. You carry a linen-wrapped loaf under one arm and a pouch of dried fennel seeds in your pocket. This bread isn't for your family or for trade. It's for Oswine, the headman. He's old now, his fingers twisted with age, his hearing clouded, but his voice still carries when he chooses. Once a year, as planting begins, he asks for one thing from each household, a gift of food freely given. Not tribute, not tax, just bread. For memory, for ceremony. The path to his house winds gently along the ridge, through fields still bare but freshly turned. The soil is dark with promise, and the smell of it fills your lungs as you walk. A pair of crows flaps overhead, slow and heavy in the morning air. Below, you see the shape of the village, not just the villa now, but the longhouse, the smokehouse, the rows of garden beds stitched together with woven fences. Children chase each other between houses. A woman hauls water from the stream, her shoulders strong beneath a faded shawl. Everything seems held together not by law or coin, but by habit and hands. You think of what your father once said, that real strength lies not in walls, but in what they shelter. Oswine's house stands just beyond the edge of the woods, built on the old Roman road, where the moss now covers most of the stones. Still, it remembers its path. So do you. You find him sitting near the threshold, wrapped in layers of wool, his boots beside him half mended, the stitching loose. He sees you approach and lifts a hand. "Brought me the bread, have you?" he says, his voice cracked but warm. You smile and kneel, offering it with both hands. With fennel, as you like. He unwraps it carefully, pressing a gnarled thumb into the crust. "Still warm, that's good," he nods once. "Sit, you do." The bench creaks beneath your weight. Birds call from the trees above. He tears a piece from the loaf and chews slowly, thoughtfully. "You bake like your grandmother," he says at last. "Strong crust, soft center." You say nothing, but your chest tightens. He gestures to the field. "They say we'll have enough barley to trade this year. Enough flax to make proper cloth." You nod. "And if not," he shrugs, "we'll plant again. What else is there?" He leans back, closes his eyes for a long moment. "You know," he says, "my father once walked to Londinium. Took him for days. Said the walls were taller than trees, and the stones smoother than river pebbles. Said there were lamps that burned without fire, and pipes that carried water like magic. I never saw it, but he spoke of it like a dream you half remember. He smiles, but it fades quickly. Now it's just a word, a memory. You look down at your hands, dusted faintly with flour. Do you think it matters, you ask? That we remember it?" He opens one eye. Maybe, maybe not. Depends what we do with the remembering. He stands slowly, joints cracking. "Come," he says. "Let's walk." You rise, brushing crumbs from your lap, and follow him down a path barely wide enough for two. The walk is slow, meandering. Oswine points out things as he goes. A patch of earth where the wild garlic will soon grow. A pair of badger prints near a fallen log, A crow's nest built cleverly in the crook of a broken tree. Everything learns to rebuild, he says softly, even the things that forget. You nod, though you're not sure what he means. The Saxons, he continues after a pause. They're not all raiders. Some come to trade. Some settle. They bring iron tools, strong horses, and their gods. You raise your brow. You believe in theirs? He chuckles. I believe in bread that rises, fire that warms, water that runs clean. If a god wants to help with that, I'll welcome them. He stops at a low rise and looks out over the valley. We're not Romans, not Britons, not Saxons. We're something else now, something in between. Back at his house, Oswine slices the rest of the bread and sets it on a wooden plate. A young girl, his granddaughter maybe, brings out a bowl of fresh cheese. You all eat in silence for a while. The bread is good. Crust cracked just right. Steam still faint inside. He pours you a cup of nettle tea, and you drink it slowly, the bitterness softened by a hint of honey. You'll bake again next week? He asks. You nod, for the moot. He nods back, satisfied. Good. Bring stories, too. People forget how to talk when their mouths are empty. He hands you a piece of folded parchment. Rough, brittle at the edges. A recipe, he says. From a monk who passed through 3 winters ago. He'd written it in Latin. Took me a month to translate it. You'll try it? You take it carefully. I will. He smiles again. Then you're part of the remembering. You walk back in the soft light of late morning. The village hums as you approach. Carts creak. Wood splits. Someone sings off-key while stirring a pot. The wind carries scents of onion and ash, of baking earth. You pass your brother helping Tion patch the roof of the smokehouse. He waves, you wave back. At the longhouse, your mother kneads dough with Redland's eldest, their hands moving in time. Cinna tends the herb beds. Children chase chickens through the garden. And in the center of it all stands the hearth. Not the Roman brazier, long rusted away, but the new one, built of river stones and clay, burning steadily. You step into the warmth, place the parchment gently on the shelf above the fire, and smile. The recipe is safe. The bread will rise again. That evening, as stars begin to prick the sky, the village gathers near the longhouse. A wide fire burns in a stone pit. Bowls of stew are passed hand to hand. Someone plays a reed flute. Your sister dances, laughing, her doll now tied to her waist like a baby. Your father tells a story about the time a goat escaped and leaped over the bathhouse wall. Everyone laughs, even Oswine. He sits beside you, wrapped in his shawl, eyes glowing in the firelight. What will we be? You ask him quietly. What name will they give us? He shrugs. Maybe none. Maybe we don't need one. Maybe it's enough to be the ones who stayed. Who baked, who built, who remembered. Think about that as you stare into the fire. About bread and names and the shape of a people still forming. You think maybe he's right, and you pass him another slice. The sound of water is the first true music of spring, not the cautious birdsong in the hedgerows. You walk slowly along the path toward the village spring, the wooden yoke across your shoulders creaking softly with each step. 2 empty buckets swing at your sides, bumping gently against your hips. The sun is warm on your back, not hot, not yet, but warm enough to soften the frost still hiding in the soil. The scent of wet moss turned loam, and something faintly floral rides on the breeze. You step over a crooked root, brush past a patch of wild mint, and smile without meaning to. The stream lies ahead, its voice growing louder with every footfall.
Pass.
This is not a dangerous journey, nor a sacred one, but somehow it feels like both. You are not alone at the stream. Edith is already there, crouched on the flat stone near the water's edge, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing her hands with a twist of ash soap. She looks up and grins when she sees you. Late, she says, though there's no edge in her voice. Just rhythm, familiarity. She is about your age, maybe a year older, but speaks with the calm confidence of someone who has seen more than she tells. 3 loaves and 2 burns on my wrist. The water's surface reflects the sky, pale blue with slow-moving clouds. Beneath the surface, small fish dart like silver thoughts. You fill the buckets, wiping mud from their bases before setting them upright on the stone. Edith rinses out a rag used to strain cheese and lays it across a sun-warmed branch to dry. "Did you hear?" she says eventually. "The monk from the western coast, the one with the one green eye and one brown, he's returning. They say he brings a book bound in fish skin, filled with stories older than the Romans." You raise a brow? What kind of stories? It's ones with animals that talk, trees that remember, people who never die, just change shape. She shakes water from her hands and stands, stretching her arms overhead. "I like stories that don't end the way you expect." You smile. "I like stories where bread rises on the first try." She laughs. "That's not a story. That's a miracle." The buckets are full now, but neither of you rush to leave. The sun is warmer here in the clearing, and the stream's lull is hard to step away from. You sit on the flat stone beside Edith, letting your legs dangle just above the water. "Do you ever think," she says softly, "about the people who used this stream before us? Not just your grandmother or mine, but the ones before them. Before the villa even. Before the roads." You nod. "I think they're still here. In the earth. In the way the path curves. In the smell after rain." She smiles, almost shyly. That's a nice way to think of it. The wind stirs the branches overhead. A few tiny white blossoms float down and settle on the surface of the water, spinning slowly in place before drifting downstream. Edith leans back on her elbows. Maybe water remembers too. You carry the buckets together, switching shoulders halfway through the walk. The village grows louder as you approach. The sharp crack of wood being split. The rhythmic clink of someone hammering a blade back into shape. The high-pitched laughter of children chasing one another through the garden beds. You pause near the longhouse and listen. The flute player is practicing again, halting notes rising and falling like a lark with a limp. "Better than yesterday," Edith remarks. Marginally you grin. "You joining the moot preparations?" She nods.
Helping with herbs.
"My aunt's weaving a new banner. Says it should show roots instead of swords." You tilt your head. Why roots? Because roots hold things together. Swords just split them apart. You consider that as you lift your bucket and continue walking, maybe stories aren't the only things that don't end the way you expect. Maybe people can change too, even if slowly. Even if they don't realize it yet. At the house, your mother takes the buckets with a nod of thanks. You see the sheen of flour on her arms, the crease in her brow from counting portions in her head. "Plenty for soup," she murmurs, half to herself, "and the barley soak." You move to help, but she stops you gently. Go outside, the sun's still high. You don't argue. Sometimes the best help is space. You find yourself back near the edge of the garden where Redland's youngest has built a maze of stones for ants to navigate. You crouch beside her.
Ouch!
Away.
And anytime you're vel like lit I will and we said I slip side for an ice right down since
"A city," she says proudly. "That's wise," she shrugs. "They just need good roads and food. Like us." She adds another pebble to her miniature wall. You sit with her a while, listening to the buzz of insects and the shuffle of sandals nearby. A city of ants, a longhouse of people. Maybe not so different after all. Later that evening, as the light softens and shadows grow long, you stand by the stream again. This time, you are alone. The buckets are empty, resting beside you. You didn't come for water, not exactly. You came to listen, to feel. The same stone waits beneath your feet. The same water flows by. But now, the light strikes it differently, catching on the small ridges in the current, turning it gold in places, silver in others. You kneel and touch the surface. watching the ripples move outward. You think of Edith's talking trees and immortal beasts. You think of the fish-skin book, of roots over swords, and you think of bread. How simple it seems, and how hard-won it truly is. You dip your hands once more, cup them together, and drink. The water is cold, clear, and real. It tastes of stone and sky. It tastes of memory. When you return home, your mother has already begun the soup. Your brother is singing to himself as he shapes kindling. Your father is sharpening the spear again, though he hasn't had to raise it in weeks. You lay your cloak on its peg, set the buckets upside down to dry, and sit beside your sister near the hearth. Did the ants find the city, you ask? She nods. Made a nest under the wall. You smile. Good foundation, then. She beams. The fire cracks, casting warm light across the room. Outside, the flute wavers into a soft melody, just barely on tune. You lean your head back and close your eyes. The world outside may shift and tremble. Raids, kingdoms, broken stones, and rising roots. But here, tonight, there is soup, there is laughter, there is clean water cooling in a clay jar. And for now, that is more than enough. Evening in the longhouse comes gently, like a wool cloak drawn over tired shoulders. The fire is low, more ember than flame, its heat steady but soft. Your mother sits near it, her back straight despite the long day, her hands wrapped around a wooden bowl of barley broth. She hums as she eats. A tune older than you, older than her, passed down in moments like this. When the noise of the day recedes and something quieter rises to take its place, you sit opposite her, your fingers still damp from washing herbs, your hair warm from the fire's breath. Your sister sleeps nearby, the doll resting beside her, face worn smooth from years of handling. The longhouse walls creak as they cool. A draft slips beneath the threshold, stirring the hem of your cloak, and then your mother speaks, not loudly, not even looking up. Would you light the lamp, dear? The one with the cross? You know the one? It's a small clay vessel, shaped simply but marked with a faint etching. A cross, rough and uneven, carved long ago by a dull blade. It sits on a shelf beside another object, a smooth piece of amber strung on a leather cord. That one, too, has been there as long as you can remember. When you were a child, you thought of them as siblings. The cross and the amulet, side by side, never touching, never apart. You take the lamp in your hands, feel the coolness of the clay, the slight roughness where the symbol rises. You dip the wick into oil, light it from the hearth, and place it carefully on the table. Its glow is gentle, golden. Your mother nods. Thank you. She doesn't explain why this lamp tonight, or she doesn't need to. Some nights the cross, other nights the amber, some nights both. You remember once asking her years ago which one she believed in? She had smiled, not unkindly, and said, "I believe in bread that rises, in children who come home." At the time, it seemed like an answer that avoided the question. Now you're not so sure. You've seen her trace the sign of the cross over a pot of soup before serving it. You've also seen her tie the amber cord around your brother's wrist when he was fevered, whispering words in a tongue you didn't recognize. Both seemed to matter. Both seemed to work. And perhaps that is the point. In this village, no temple stands, no church bell rings. The gods, old or new, are quieter here, not absent, but patient. They dwell in soup steam, in harvest rhythms, in the quiet touch of a thumb against a child's brow. And in that flickering lamp, carved by someone who believed enough to make a mark. The next morning, you rise before the sun and find your mother already in the courtyard, laying herbs on a cloth to dry. Dew glistens on every leaf. The air is cold, but she hums to herself, her breath puffing white. She wears both items today, the cross tucked beneath her collar, the amber amulet hanging openly. You don't mention it? She doesn't explain. Instead, she gestures toward the patch of lemon balm and says, "We'll need more for the tonic." You kneel beside her, pinching stems just above their nodes, inhaling the clean scent as you work. Bees buzz lazily nearby, drawn out early by the warm week. Your grandmother, she says suddenly, wore the amulet every day of her life. You glance at her. Did she ever wear the cross? Your mother nods. Near the end, said she wanted all the help she could get. She smiles faintly, but there's no humor in it. Only memory. Later at the longhouse, the monk arrives again. the one with the mismatched eyes and the fish-skin book. He wears a cloak the color of wood smoke and carries a walking stick carved with simple spirals. His children flock to him, half curious, half afraid. He sits near the fire and begins to read. Not in Latin, but in a softened version of your own tongue, as if shaped to fit these listeners. His story is strange. A tree that blooms in winter, a woman who speaks to birds, a village where no one dies but everyone forgets. The children stare wide-eyed. Your mother listens from the back, her hands busy with stitching. You sit near her, shelling peas, watching the monk's lips as he forms each word. When he finishes, he opens his fish-skin book and shows a picture, painted in ochre and blue, a woman with a cross in one hand and an orb of amber in the other. You blink. After the monk leaves, the questions ripple quietly. Us. Some say the woman in the book was a saint. Others say she was a druidess converted in her final days. Your mother says nothing. She simply wraps the peas in cloth and begins the stew. That night, by the fire, you ask again. Not what she believes, but why she keeps both. She is quiet for a long time. Then, because both are old, and both remember something true, you think about that as the fire crackles. About the way your grandmother's fingers always brushed the amulet before bedtime. About the whispered prayer your father sometimes mutters, even though he claims not to pray. About the way Oswine touched the earth before planting. Signs are all around. Not declarations, but threads. Invisible lines tying you to people you've never met. Maybe belief is less about answers and more about remembering not to forget. Before bed, you light both lamps. The one with the cross and the one without any mark at all. The flames are the same height, the same color. The light touches the same walls, the same sleeping faces. Your mother kisses your forehead and tucks the amber cord beneath your blanket. For dreams, she says, you hold it gently in your fist as you fall asleep. That night you dream of a stone path winding through a field, along the path markers, some shaped like crosses, others like suns, moons, birds, hands. At the end of the path stands a house with no roof, but a fire still burning in its center. A woman waits there. She says nothing, just holds out bread in both hands. You take it, and the warmth floods through you like sunlight. When you wake, your fingers still curl slightly, as if holding something that has already disappeared. In the morning, mist hangs low across the valley. You fetch water from the stream alone this time. The trees drip with dew, each leaf trembling faintly in the breeze. As you bend to fill your bucket, something glints in the silt. A coin, maybe, worn smooth by time. You reach for it. It's oval, made of copper or bronze, etched faintly with a spiral on one side and a crooked line on the other. You don't recognize the symbols. You don't need to. You slip it into your pocket and carry it home. Not to spend, not to show, just to keep. Another small thread. Another quiet reminder that you are not the first to walk these paths. Not the only one to wonder what lies beyond the edge of knowing. And perhaps not the only one who has ever carried two truths in the same hand. At low tide, the causeway reveals itself like a secret. Stones slick with brine shimmer beneath the retreating water, and the air tastes of salt and kelp. You are careful with your steps, moving quickly before the sea returns. Behind you, the mainland fades into morning mist. Ahead, the small island waits. Lindisfarne, cradled in silence. The monastery sits just above the shore, its timber buildings wrapped in mist, its gardens hushed, even the gulls quieter here. You are a novice, clothed in coarse wool, dyed with alder bark. Your sandals squish faintly as you cross the final patch of slick stone and reach the gate. The bell hasn't rung yet. You're early. You always are. Inside these walls, you copy words by candlelight. You sweep ashes, stir salves, pluck weeds from the cloister garden. You're not yet a monk, not yet a scholar, only a seed waiting for shape. But shape is coming. Brother Said greets you at the gate as he always does. With one hand resting on his walking stick and the other raised in a soft wave. The tide was kind, he asks. You nod. Left early, you reply. Didn't want to miss the copying hour. He smiles. Deep lines radiating from his eyes like sunbursts. Eager as ever. It's good. Inside the gate, the world narrows to quiet work. Bees hum over lavender bushes. A line of laundry flaps gently in the salt breeze. Farther in, the scriptorium awaits. A small stone room with a long wooden bench. 3 desks, and a single window that looks east toward the open sea. You enter with practiced quiet. Your tools are already laid out. Goose quill ink, a half-finished parchment with red initials awaiting illumination. Dip your pen. The sound of quill against skin is faint like breathing. You copy the next line slowly, carefully. It lux in tenebris, lucet, and the light shineth in darkness. You don't yet know all the words, not truly. Latin comes slowly, like tide water pooling in a hollow. But you know the shapes. You know how to center a margin, how to make an S-curve like a river, how to bind the letters like hands in prayer. Brother Elric says that copying scripture is its own kind of devotion, a way to steady the mind and train the heart. You believe him? Some days the words feel like seeds. You press them into the parchment and hope they bloom in someone else's eyes. You wonder sometimes who will read this scroll. Another monk? Bishop? A traveler from the south? Or no one at all? Just time, dust, and sea air. Still, you're right, because writing is remembering, and remembering is holy. After copying hour, you tend the garden. The tools hang on pegs beside the shed. A worn spade, a curved knife, a pair of wooden trowels. You choose the knife and kneel beside the chamomile bed, snipping flower heads with care. Bees hum nearby, earth clings to your knees. Cross the path, Brother Edric sings softly as he gathers yarrow. His voice is cracked but true. The herb beds are your favorite place in the world, orderly, fragrant, full of quiet labor. You know each plant by sight and scent, rue for bruises, fennel for digestion, comfrey for wounds, calendula for skin, horehound for coughs. You tuck a few sprigs of mint into your pocket as you work. Later, you'll add them to the teapot. In the far corner, the apple tree shows its first buds. You touch one gently, as if not to startle it. Everything here grows slowly, and yet always in time. After the midday meal, oat cakes and salted fish, eaten in silence. You help, brother, said bind a new scroll. The vellum crackles under your hands, not yet softened by age. You hold the glue pot steady as he stretches the thread, knotting it with steady fingers. This, he says, is the life of the monastery. Not stone, not chanting. This points to the scene. This is how the past holds. You nod. You've begun to understand that the monastery is not only a place of prayer, it is a vessel, a ship against forgetting. Each book you copy, each page you stitch, each plant you tend, it's all part of a slow rescue. Not of men, perhaps, but of memory. A fragment here, story there, a recipe, a hymn, a name scratched in the margin. Small things gathered gently, preserved like herbs and salt. In the evening, you walk to the edge of the island and sit where the land meets rock and sea. The tide has returned, covering the causeway, cutting Lindisfarne off from the world again. You watch the waves slide over the stone path and feel the hush that follows. The sky feels wider. The air is thick with salt and wind. Far out, a flock of birds skims the surface, turning in unison like a single thought. You reach into your pouch and find the mint from earlier. You chew it slowly, its coolness sharp and clean. Tomorrow, the tides will change again. Tomorrow, more words will be copied, more herbs dried, more bread baked. But tonight, there is only the sea, the books, the memory of light through vellum. Close your eyes and imagine the world beyond. Valleys, fields, villages, a girl lighting a lamp with a cross. And you wonder if somehow she is also remembering you. At Compline, the final prayer hour. You sit in the chapel's rear pew, your hands folded in your lap. Candles flicker in rhythm with the wind. The chants rise and fall like breath echoing off stone and timber. You don't know all the words, not yet, but you mouth them anyway, shaping syllables like clay. In this place, language is more than sound. It's structure. It holds the hours, the days, the very shape of life. Afterward, you help extinguish the candles one by one. As the final flame fades, darkness rises gently like tide water. You make your way to your sleeping mat beside the scriptorium wall, the scent of ink still lingering in your robe. Before lying down, you whisper the words you copied that morning. Iti lux in tenebris lucet, and the light shineth in darkness. You hold the sentence in your mouth like bread, and sleep takes you, quiet and whole. The bell rings low and hollow at dawn, calling you from sleep. You rise slowly, joints stiff from the cool stone beneath your mat. Your breath mists in the air, and outside the small window of the novice's quarters, the world is wrapped in gray. Salt wind presses against the shutters. You dress quickly, tunic, belt, sandals, and draw your robe close before stepping into the cloister walk. The flagstones are wet from the morning rain, shining faintly in the candlelight spilling from the chapel door. Brother Said stands nearby, speaking softly to a man you do not recognize. The stranger leans heavily on a staff. One leg is bandaged with wool and twisted bark, stained dark with blood. You stop. The man's cloak is torn. His hands shake. Brother Said sees you and nods. Fetch the salve, child. The one with comfrey and honey, and the clean linens. You run sandals slapping against stone. The herb room smells of sage, vinegar, and damp earth. You move swiftly through its narrow aisles, plucking the green glazed jar from its shelf and gathering folded cloths from the cedar chest. By the time you return, the stranger is seated on a bench just inside the hall, his injured leg propped on a stool. Brother Said has cut away the old wrappings and now works with quiet hands. Murmuring a prayer as he spreads the golden salve, you watch, holding the linen tightly. The wound is deep but clean, a gash from a blade, not an accident. Bandits, you whisper. The man nods, teeth clenched. 3 took my donkey and grain, left me near the stones. Said wraps the leg carefully, then presses a warm cloth to the man's brow. You're safe now, he says. No more swords here. Stranger breathes out, shoulders slumping. Safe is a fine word. I hope it's true. After the man has eaten and rests beneath a wool blanket, you help, Brother Said, clean the tools. You scrub them in hot water steeped with lavender and ash soap, hands moving by memory. Why do they come here, you ask? When there are other places? Other monks? Brother Said dries his hands.
Ow.
Because here we have books and balm. Here memory is stitched with healing. He gestures toward the scroll shelf. The body and the soul are not strangers. And pain remembers. You nod, though you're still thinking of the man's face. The dirt beneath his nails, the hollow in his cheeks. What if they come again, Said meets your gaze. Then we'll care for them, as we do this one, as we always have. You look toward the door where the man now sleeps. You wonder how many have crossed the causeway in silence, dragging wounds behind them, and how many more will come. Later in the scriptorium, you return to your work. The scroll is almost complete, a passage from Luke, its letters inked in black with bright red initials. You pause before the next line, hands still stained with salve and blood. The quill hovers. Then you write, Beati misericords, quoniam ipsi misericordiam consequenter. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The words settle into the parchment like seeds. You take care shaping each curve, each hook. You wonder if the man sleeping in the corner will read these words someday, if they will mean more to him than wounds and loss, if they'll remind him of quiet hands and warm broth, of a bed offered without questions. You finish the line and lay your quill aside. Outside, the wind rises again, rattling the wooden shutters. You think of the sword that made the wound, and the scroll that will outlive it. Brother Elric joins you in the garden that afternoon. He limps slightly, favoring his right knee, but his hands are steady as he kneels beside the feverfew bed. The world forgets, he says softly. It forgets its wounds, its lessons. That's why we write. You nod. But it also forgets kindness. He smiles. That's why we heal. You work in tandem. You trimming mint, he harvesting marigold blossoms, and the air fills with their mingled scent. When I was a boy, he says, a warrior came to our home, wounded badly. My mother hid him beneath the floorboards for 3 days, fed him bread and milk, never spoke of it again. You glance at him. Why? Because kindness isn't meant to be loud. It works best in silence. He lifts a handful of blossoms to his nose. These will help the stranger's leg. You nod. You feel the weight of the scissors in your hand. Sharp, precise, useful. Like memory. Like mercy. That evening, the man wakes and asks for parchment. You bring him a scrap and a bit of charcoal. He writes slowly, awkwardly. scratching words in a dialect you barely recognize. You kneel beside him and read the lines as he shapes them. A name, a village, a wife, a daughter. In case I don't wake, he says, tell them where I went. Yet I tried. You swallow hard and fold the parchment. You'll wake. He smiles, faint and crooked. Hope so. He touches the linen at his side. This place, it holds things together. You glance around the wooden beams, the low fire, the quiet rustle of a monk turning a page. It tries, you say, nods and closes his eyes. Later, when you sit by the fire with your cup of mint tea, you take the scrap of parchment and slide it into your own book. Not to keep, to remember. Before sleep, you visit the chapel. Only one candle burns now, its flame small but sure. You kneel in the rear pew, as you always do, and press your palms together. You don't pray with words. Not yet. Instead, you picture the man's wound healing, the scroll being read, the herbs sprouting again next spring. You picture your hands moving over parchment, over soil, over a wound. There are many ways to hold a life. Some use steel, others use ink. Others, a bandage soaked in honey and hope. You bow your head and breathe deep. Salt, wax, dust. The mingled scent of a place where scroll and sword pass through the same hands, and where mercy, even quiet, still echoes. Night comes slowly to Lindisfarne, thick and blue around the edges. The sea is silent now, its surface black glass, broken only by the occasional flick of a silver fin or the distant cry of gulls heading inland. You sit by the chapel's low wall, where the island tilts gently toward the water, and wait for the tide to seal the world again. Already the causeway is disappearing, water rising steadily, swallowing the stones you crossed that morning. It feels like watching memory wash itself clean. By midnight, you know the island will be adrift in solitude once more, joined to the land only by faith and rhythm. You pull your cloak tighter. The salt wind has teeth tonight. Stars blink overhead and the fire in your lantern dims, catching briefly before flaring again. You glance out to sea, almost ready to turn back, and then you see it, boat low, wide, barely more than a shadow, but coming. You rise slowly, heart quiet but alert. The boat cuts the water without sound. No oar splash, no voices rise. Only the steady drift of wood over salt, gliding on the tide like a thought taking shape. As it nears the shore, you make out its shape more clearly. A round-bellied craft, Norse in design, but small, built for river travel. A single figure stands at the stern, cloaked and still. Another lies flat in the boat's belly, unmoving. You step forward just as the hull kisses stone. The man standing raises one hand, palm open. Not in threat, in greeting. He speaks in a language thick with sea and snow, but you catch enough. Peace, brother. Need help. You nod and gesture toward the shore. Together you lift the wounded man from the boat. His skin is cold. His breath is shallow. His tunic is rich. A noble's dyed deep blue and edged with fur, now wet with sea. You carry him toward the monastery. Brother said meets you at the gate, lamp in hand. His eyes narrow at the sight of the boatman, but he says nothing, only gestures. In here. You lay the noble down on a bed of straw near the hearth. He is young, no more than 20, with a gold ring still clinging to his finger and a half-healed gash running along his ribs. Said peels away the soaked tunic and begins to clean the wound. Old, he murmurs, but deep, cold in the marrow now. You fetch the warming stones, the honey salve, the linen wraps. The boatman watches everything silent, his fingers twitching slightly. You offer him water. He takes it without speaking. He smells of pine resin and fish oil, and you notice beneath his cloak a leather pouch full of herbs and small vials. Not a warrior, you think, a healer, or something like it. His eyes meet yours for a moment, not fearful, not proud, just tired. By morning, the tide has turned. The boat rests awkwardly on wet sand, half-tilted. The noble breathes more steadily now, though his brow still glistens with sweat. You help change his bandages, brother said. Writes a note in Latin to send with the next traveler. Word of a stranger arrived, wounded but alive. We send news, he says, even when we do not know where it will land. The boatman stands beside you, then reaches into his pouch and offers something. A small disc of carved bone, strung on a leather thong. A sunburst pattern marks one side, a tree the other. You take it carefully, feeling its weight. Protection, he says in halting speech. Old, but still strong. You bow your head, places it around your neck and steps back. Later, when the tide allows it, he will leave again. You understand, this island heals but does not hold. It receives, releases. That afternoon, the boatman repairs the vessel, tightening bindings with lengths of flaxen cord, and smoothing the keel with a bone tool. Help where you can, fetching water, holding the lantern when the shadows fall. He speaks more now, though softly, and you piece together fragments. The wounded man is a chieftain's son, cut down during a raid in the north, not by Saxons, but by his own cousin. A fight over land, over pride, over something long forgotten. They ran, the two of them, not for safety, but for silence. No more blood, he says. No more fire. You nod, you understand that too. The world is tired of blades. That evening, when Brother Elric offers them food, fish stew, coarse barley bread, and mint tea, the boatman raises his bowl and says something you don't recognize. A prayer, perhaps a thank you, or both. Before sleep, you walk to the edge of the water. The wind is low now, and the stars shine with steady light. You hold the bone pendant in your hand, running your thumb over the sunburst, then the tree. Symbols older than your prayers, perhaps, or cousins to them, not foreign, just unfamiliar. You wonder how many symbols the sea has carried across its surface. How many faiths have made landfall here, wrapped in cloaks and silence? At your feet, the waves leave offerings. Bits of shell, frayed rope, the jawbone of a small fish. You crouch and place the pendant in the sand for a moment, just to see how it looks. Lit by starlight, framed by sea foam. Then you lift it again and place it back around your neck. It is not yours, and yet it is. In the morning, the boatman is gone. The tide has pulled him back, toward whatever corner of the world waits. The noble sleeps still, but his color has returned. You sit by his side, reading aloud from a scroll you copied last winter. A psalm of peace, its words soft and slow. He stirs slightly, one eye opening, unfocused, but he listens. You keep reading. Behind you, the fire crackles. Brother said murmurs a prayer. Outside, the sea glows gold with rising light. The island endures, not untouched, but unhardened. A place where things arrive broken and leave quieter. A place where the tide brings more than salt. It brings stories. It brings sorrow. It brings the chance, however faint, to begin again. The wind off the sea has a voice of its own. Not loud, not cruel, but constant. It hums through the stones, brushes the wild grass flat against the cliffs, and whispers through the narrow window slits of the watchtower above Dunholm. You sit on a ledge within that tower, your back against rough mortar, a fur cloak pulled tight around your shoulders. Below, the village stirs. Smoke rising from turf-roofed houses. Hens pecking near the ash piles and dogs weaving among the carts and benches. You watch all of it through a slit in the wall no wider than your forearm. There is no sign of sails today. Just sea. Just sky. The kind of morning that almost lets you believe nothing waits beyond the horizon. But you do not believe that. Not anymore. The sea never stays empty for long. You were not meant to be a watcher. Your hands were shaped for nets and knives, for brining fish and patching sails. But when your cousin's eldest was taken during the spring raid, everything changed. Dunholm needed eyes. So now, you take the first watch after dawn, while others mend the boats and grind the grain. The tower is simple. 3 stacked rooms of stone and timber, built long ago by someone who feared something different. Roman, maybe. Briton. Saxon. Now it is yours. The stairs creak underfoot, the floor sways slightly in strong wind. But the view is good, can see far. The north curve of the bay, the inlet where seals sometimes rest, the trail of smoke from the monastery far to the east. You light the beacon only when needed. Once, last month, and twice the winter before. Once is too many. Your sister brings food at mid-morning, oat cakes, an onion wrapped in cloth, and a slice of smoked eel. She doesn't speak as she sets them beside you, but her hand lingers on your arm. A silent check. Oh, you nod, and she leaves. She works with the wool these days, her fingers always red from lye and lanolin. You remember when you were younger how she sang while spinning? Now she doesn't sing as much. Not since the last boat came ashore with fire. Still she laughs when she can. Still she walks with her shoulders straight. Dunholm is like that, bent but not broken. People here do not speak of grief often, but they carry it in their hands. Woven into rope, salted into stew, stitched into tunics. You eat quickly, eyes never leaving the sea. It glitters now, harmless in the sun. But you've learned not to trust light on water. In the afternoon you climb down and trade places with Bryn, a boy not yet tall enough to grow a full beard, but with eyes that never miss a shadow. You walk the path back toward the village slowly, letting your muscles ease, letting your eyes soften. Along the way you stop by the edge of the old Roman wall. Little remains now, just waist-high stones half sunk in moss. You place your hand on one, cold still strong. They say there was once a road here, straight and firm, stretching east to the sea and west to the hills. Now, it's just a trail worn by feet and hooves. But it still leads home. You follow it. Past the drying racks, past the pit where they smoke cod, past the hedgerow planted to catch wind before it reaches the fields. The sound of weaving drifts through the open windows, the thud of looms, the occasional song. It's not much, but enough. At the center of the village, the hearth burns all day, sheltered beneath a stone lean-to. You sit there now with the others, sharpening tools, mending net, turning over news like river stones. Someone speaks of the monastery sending scrolls again. Someone else mentions the north road is passable if the rains hold. You nod, you listen, you speak only when asked. Not from pride, but from rhythm. You're a watcher, even down here. You notice what others miss? The chipped haft of a spear, the dog limping near the storehouse, the stranger whose eyes linger too long on the boats. You don't act yet, but you note. Later, by lamplight, you carve the signs into your tally stick. Not words, just marks. Your father once did the same. His stick still hangs above your bed. Brittle with age, but true. That evening, just after sundown, the firelight turns the village gold. Children chase shadows. Bread bakes in clay ovens. Your mother tells the old story again, of the eel that whispered secrets to the river girl and taught her how to build a house that couldn't tea-burn. You've heard it 100 times. Still you smile. Still you lean a little closer when she reaches the end. And so, she says, the house was built, not of wood or straw, but of songs. And no fire could catch them. The youngest ones clap, the older ones nod. Everyone knows the story isn't real. But the lesson is, some things endure. It's not because they are strong, but because they're sung. Afterward, you walk your sister home, one hand resting on the knife at your belt, just in case. The sea sleeps now, but you don't trust its dreams. That night, you return to the tower for the final watch. Moonlight paints the sea in silver streaks. No sails, no torches, only stars and waves, and the sound of gulls nesting in the cliff face. You pace the floor slowly, tracing the same steps your uncle once did. You think of the stories he used to tell, of monsters in the sea, of lights that danced over water, of voices that weren't men. You used to laugh. Now you're not so sure. The world has edges you can't name. You touch the hilt of your blade, then the small carved charm at your neck, an amber bead from your grandmother, warm even in the wind. You whisper a line from the psalm the monk taught you. Watch over the watchers, O Lord. You don't know if anyone hears, but the words steady your breath. You press your palm to the stone and wait for dawn. At the edge of the village, where the fields slope gently downward toward the marsh, there is an orchard. Small and crooked, it leans into the wind. Its trees bowed and thin from hard winters, but still standing, still blooming. You walk there often, not out of duty, but rhythm. The path is soft beneath your boots, worn by generations of feet before you. You know every root that juts out, every moss-covered stone. The orchard holds 5 trees, all apple. It's not wild, but not quite tamed either. Their fruit is small and sharp, good for boiling, better for drying. In spring, they blossom pale white, filling the air with the scent of honey and green wood. In autumn, the leaves fall early, speckled with rust and soft at the edges. Beneath the middle tree is where your father lies, or what remains of him. It was a cold morning when the villagers returned from the ashes. The raiders had come and gone like a storm in the night. Sudden, brutal, without warning. No wall had stopped them. No torch was seen in time. You were away at the watchtower. By the time you returned, it was smoke and silence. They buried what could be buried, but not all could. Some ashes were taken to the orchard, quietly, without words. It was many seasons ago now. And still, every time you pass beneath the middle tree, your hand drifts to the low branch where he used to tie the harvest baskets. You touch it lightly. The bark is rough, cold. Sometimes you speak to the tree, though never loudly. Just a word, a breath, a memory you're not sure belongs to you anymore. The tree doesn't answer, but it stays. And sometimes that is enough. You bring water from the stream today, 2 buckets slung across your shoulders, the yoke pressing into the muscle of your back. The orchard soil is dry this year. The rain has been slow to come. You tilt the bucket carefully around the base of each tree, watching the water soak into the roots. At the 5th tree, the newest, you pause. This one was planted last spring, after Senna passed. No stone marks her grave. Only the sapling, still thin, still learning how to lean into the wind. Her son visits once a week, leaves offerings of herbs, a slice of bread, once even a folded scrap of linen. You do not disturb them. You simply nod and keep walking. The orchard has become something more than a grove, a quiet archive. A place where lives root themselves again and again without fanfare. This afternoon, the children come. Not to mourn, but to play. They chase one another between the trunks, laughing, kicking up dust. Someone has tied a piece of blue thread to a branch, and it flutters in the breeze like a forgotten prayer. You watch from the edge of the clearing, seated on a stump that once was the 6th tree. That one didn't survive the frost 4 winters ago. But even its absence has shape now. A circle where grass grows taller, where the wind circles before moving on. The children call to one another with nicknames, their feet bare, their hair tangled. They don't speak of raiders or hunger, or the cold nights when mothers weep behind woven curtains. They sing. You think of the stories your father once told, beneath this very canopy, and of the way he always ended them. Not with an ending, but with. And so the trees grew. You rise and walk among the trunks, fingers brushing lichen and leaf. The orchard is not large. It will not feed a village, but it stands. And that, in this age, feels like abundance. You check each tree with practiced hands, for borers, for mold, for signs of deer. You find only one cracked branch, low and half split from last week's storm. You kneel and cut it clean with your knife, laying it gently at the base. It will dry in time, become firewood, maybe kindling for the hearth, where broth simmers, where stories begin. Nothing is wasted here. Even broken things feed something else. You think of your brother's old sandals now lining the bottom of a planter, of Oswine's chair whose legs became a stool, of the amulet you wear, its thread replaced twice now, but still worn. This is what the dark ages mean, you think. Not the absence of light, but the patient gathering of it. That evening the village gathers for the naming. Baby was born 3 nights ago. Her mother pale but smiling, her father quiet with awe. Tonight the child is wrapped in wool and passed from hand to hand. Kissed, blessed, whispered over. When she is placed in your arms, you feel her weight. Warm, soft, real. Her eyes are shut. Her breath is slow. You rock her gently, humming without knowing it. Across the fire, her mother watches you, then nods. You call her Fen, a soft name, a rooted one. People nod. One raises a mug. Someone else begins a low song. The village doesn't shout. It doesn't cheer. But joy spreads like smoke. Thin, curling, persistent. You pass the child on. Step into the night, your face warm, your hand still tingling from the life you just held. You walk back to the orchard, just to be near it a while. You sit by the middle tree, beneath stars so old they feel young again. The wind is gentle. Somewhere a dog barks, then falls quiet. You reach into your pouch and remove a crust of bread, placing it gently at the tree's base. For you whisper. And for her, and for all of us. You lean back, eyes half closed, listening. not for words, but for the hush that comes when things are just as they are. No torches on the horizon, no voices raised. Only the slow rhythm of earth, cradling its own. You think again of your father's stories, of roots that grow even when no one watches, of ash turned to soil, of names spoken and forgotten, and spoken again. The orchard sways. The branches above you cross like arms. The air smells of bark and apple and quiet hope. And beneath your feet something old continues to hold you. The morning air is thick with flour and fire. You stand in the longhouse kitchen, sleeves rolled above your elbows, hands buried in dough. The bread is rising slowly, warm from the hearth, its scent already filling the room with quiet promise. Press your knuckles gently into the center, testing the shape, folding it inward like breath. Around you, the rhythm of life murmurs. The scraping of a knife across a cutting board. The creak of the door, letting in early sunlight. The rustle of someone setting down firewood near the oven. This is how the day begins now. Not with fear, not with fire, but with dough and stone and time. Your mother hums faintly as she trims herbs for the soup. Your brother passes by with a basket of onions. Even your sister, half asleep, stirs the ash from the grate without being asked. The bread is almost ready. You feel it. There is something holy in the way. Flour becomes bread. Not miraculous, no, but steady. You think of the years it took to understand how warm the bowl should be, how much salt is too much, how to tell when the dough is spoken. As your grandmother once said, "It's not about timing," she'd whisper, "it's about listening." And so you've learned to listen, not just with ears, but with fingertips, with the skin of your forearms, with your breath. The dough is soft now, springy under your palms. You shape it into rounds, 2 small and 1 large, and score the tops with a sharpened bone, drawing the same pattern you always do. A cross, circle, and 3 dots, body, sun, memory. You slide them into the oven, the clay door closing with a soft thud, and then you wait. Not idly, but patiently, because the rising always comes. While the bread bakes, you step outside. The sun is high now, gilding the tips of the garden beds and turning the stream silver where it bends past the orchard. You walk down to the path slowly, hands still dusted with flour, and pause beside the lavender bush your mother planted last year. It's blooming again. Pale purple, clustered low to the ground, bees already working through its narrow stalks. You crouch and breathe it in, letting the scent settle inside you. There is no sound of hooves, no shouts from the hills, no smoke on the horizon, just wind, just birds. Just the creak of the gate as someone returns from the watchtower with nothing to report. You stand, nod to them, and walk back toward the hearth, where heat and time continue their work. The longhouse is quieter now, almost reverent. Inside, the loaves have begun to crack along their seams, golden and full, the crust whispering as it hardens. You lift them one by one onto the board, feeling the weight of them settle into your arms. They are warm, but not heavy. Fragrant, but not loud. You place them on the table as others arrive, Oswine, wrapped in his shawl. Edith, with herbs in her braid. Tion still limping slightly, his arms full of dried fish. They bring what they have. No one speaks at first. It is enough to be here. You'll break the first loaf with your hands, steam rising into the morning light. Someone passes bowls. Someone pours water. Someone begins a blessing. Not in Latin, not in any tongue you were taught, but in the simple words of this place. Let what is broken be shared. Let what is shared be whole. As you eat, you look around the table. These are not kings. Not saints, not legends, just people. Tired, quiet, kind. Some with scars on their hands, others with songs in their throats. All of them carrying something unseen. A name spoken softly in the orchard. A scroll half finished in the scriptorium, a charm tied tight around a wrist. You remember them all, not because you chose to, but because memory chooses you. In this world, one of ash and root, of salt and stitch. Remembering is a kind of duty and a kind of love. So you eat. You listen. You pass the bread. And with every bite you feel something rise, not in your stomach, but in your chest, your spine, in the quiet core of your being. It is not joy, not exactly, but something close, something older, something whole. After the meal, you return to the oven and prepare more dough. There is always someone hungry, always someone arriving. A messenger from the coast, a cousin from the south, a girl with no name but a soft voice, asking if she might help gather mint for the tea. You teach her how to knead, slowly, gently, like folding sky into earth. She listens with wide eyes. Will it rise? You nod. Always, if we wait. She smiles. You remember her name? Later, she will have her own bowl, her own pattern, her own rhythm. Someday she will teach someone else, not because she must, but because the bread taught her how. At sunset, you walk once more to the orchard. The breeze is picked up, cool now, brushing your hair away from your brow. The branches sway overhead, scattering petals that land on your cloak like snow. You sit beneath the middle tree, where the roots run deepest, and rest your hands in your lap. The day is ending, but nothing is finished. Above, birds wheel across the fading sky. Below, the soil still holds its secrets. You close your eyes and think of all that's past. The raids, the hunger, the cold, the healing. Scrolls, the songs, the stories. The faces you've lost, the names you carry. And the bread. Always the bread. Rising again. Maybe we haven't changed as much as we think. Still gather when the sun is warm. Still press our hands into the dough and wait. We still speak softly when the night falls. And we still pass the bread. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams.